What's going on, guys? My name is Tommy. Welcome back to the channel. It is presently 6:02 p.m. Monday, the 19th of March. More information on Paizo's 2nd edition fighter has been out for about an hour and a half now, and we're here today to talk all about it. I'm not entirely sure when this upload is going to hit YouTube, but I do know it's going to hit YouTube literally as soon as humanly possible for me to get it to you guys. I don't know about you, but I'm super stoked for this new content, and I'm ready to dive in head first. Speaking of new content, the Doomsday Dawn adventure is right around the corner, and if we can get our Patreon up to around $150 a month for our next giveaway, we'd love to run it for you. For more information about that giveaway, you can follow this card right here, or find the link in the description, along with the link to our Patreon. Speaking of patronage, today, this episode of your Pathfinder 2nd edition preview content was brought to you in part by Joseph Harvilla. Joe, as always, man, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your support. And hey, if this gets out tonight, and I'm going to do my best to make sure it does, happy 21st birthday, man. Hope you have a great one. Now let's dive in. So in Pathfinder 1st edition, the fighter is the class that gets a feat at every level. They have special class abilities that allow them to use weapons a little better. And in addition, archetypes existed to make your fighter maybe better with a two-handed weapon, better with a crossbow, or maybe even have something like a familiar. I gotta say though, whenever I would play a fighter, it would almost always be the other half of a Gestalt class. Of course, Pathfinder 2nd edition is taking everything and throwing it on its head, as new editions will. Fighters are no exception to that rule. To quote Paizo, the fighter takes on the role of the primary combat character, good at taking damage and even better at dealing damage. They wanted their 2nd edition fighter to be the best with weapons, using his class options to give him an edge with his particular weapon of choice, but also the fighter has to be mobile, able to get into the fray quickly and hold the line, allowing less melee-oriented characters to get into position and use their abilities without having to get bad guys out of their face. The first thing Paizo talks about in their fighter class preview is the attack of opportunity. It is a feature shared by all fighters, which allows you to spend your reaction to strike a creature within your reach that tries to manipulate an object, make a ranged attack, or move away from you. This attack is made with a -2 penalty, but it doesn't take the multiple attack penalty from other strikes you attempt on your turn. Other classes can get this ability, and numerous monsters will, but only the fighter starts with it as a core feature. Fighters also have feat choices that can make their attacks of opportunity more effective. So right off, we don't know how multi-classing is going to work in this game, but I can tell you right now that I'm probably, if it works in the same vein as 1E, going to be considering dipping fighter a lot more often. Present day, one dips fighter for full martial weapon proficiency, a bonus feed, a buff to your base attack. Here, dipping fighter grants us an attack of opportunity reaction in addition to whatever it is dipping fighter for multi-class rules will grant us. In my head, I'm starting to see a picture of like the variant multi-class rules from 1st edition, maybe tweaked a little bit. We'll see as time goes on. To continue to quote Paizo, next up at 3rd level, you gain Weapon Mastery, which increases your proficiency rank with one group of weapons to master. We talked about proficiency in the video we put out before this. If you'd like to see it, you can follow this card right here. At 13th level, that proficiency increases to Legendary, which again, quoting Paizo, makes you truly the best with weapons of your choice. At 19th level, a fighter becomes a legend, gaining legendary proficiency, we assume, with all simple and martial weapons. In addition, the fighter has an ability known as Battlefield Surveyor, which increases his perception proficiency rank to Master, he begins at Expert, and gives him an additional +1 bonus when he rolls Perception for Initiative. It's still really weird to me to think that every class will have perception, but I'm super down with that because it's the most rolled skill in old Pathfinder. You imagine that will carry over. And if we can tack an extra +1 onto that, then yeah, sure, great, let's do it. Paizo also notes that the fighter will have the largest selection of feats of all the classes in the game, and Paizo has also decided in their infinite wisdom to reveal some of those feats to us. After all, what is a fighter without feats? After all, what is any class without feats? Let's dive into them real fast. Now, if you've watched the Glass Cannon podcast, or if you've watched any of the stuff from like the trade show, you probably know what Sudden Charge is. This is a feat that the fighter can pick up at 1st level. If you spend 2 actions on that feat, it allows you to move up to twice your speed and deliver a single strike. There's no need to move in a straight line like charging, and like charging, there's no AC penalty, you just move an attack. In addition, you would still have that last action to raise your shield to, hit him again at a -5 or with a -4 if you're using an agile weapon. So in a way, we're kind of handing out a weird pounce to the fighters, pounce being a really powerful ability in 1E. And again, this does exactly what Paizo's saying it does. It lets you get right into the fight and start fighting. Speaking of fighting, that classic feat everybody takes, Power Attack? Yeah, we have 2nd edition Power Attack revealed right here. In 2nd edition, Power Attack allows you to spend 2 actions to make a single strike that deals an extra die of damage. To quote Paizo, instead of trading accuracy for damage as it used to work, you now trade out 1 action you could have used for a far less accurate attack to get more power on a roll that is more likely to hit. We've talked a lot about extra damage dice floating around, and now that Power Attack is doing that as well, the first thing that crosses my mind, how many of these dice are multiplied on a critical hit? We've essentially turned Power Attack into Vital Strike when we consider we use 1 action to move up and then Power Attack. We all know in 1st edition, the Vital Strike dice are not multiplied on a critical hit, whether or not the extra damage dice from Power Attack or the extra damage dice from a +1 weapon enchantment is multiplied on a critical hit remains to be seen, but I for one am super stoked to figure it out because I'm super stoked to, hit things in the head with a longsword. The next feat Paizo brings up is the feat Quick Reversal. If you are being flanked and you miss with your 2nd or 3rd attack against one of the flankers, this feat lets you redirect the attack to the other target and reroll it. Now, in those optimization guides you see for 1E where they talk about blue feats are good, red feats are bad, this is probably a yellow to red feat because it sounds really situational, but it's worth mentioning that having a wonky sort of cleave, swing at the big bad guy, miss him, and then stab one of his mooks to death isn't the worst thing in the world, and in 2nd edition that might be really powerful, we'll just have to see. The next thing Paizo brings up in the blog is how fun and how tactical shields are in the game. In case you've missed it, taking an action in Pathfinder 2nd edition will allow you to raise your shield, getting your shield bonus to your armor class and your touch armor class. If you don't take that action, your shield dangles at your side and you're not blocking with it. We can also spend a reaction to actively block with our shield if it is raised and mitigate some of the damage using the shield's hardness. Fighters also have a reaction that allow them to immediately raise their shield if they would be attacked. Now we've got some more juicy stuff about shields. At level 6, fighters can take the feat Shield Warden, which allows them to use their shield to block the damage taken by an adjacent ally. At 8th level, they can even get an extra reaction each turn just to use shield block 1 additional time. At 14th level, a fighter can use their shield to protect themselves from Dragon's Breath, from fireballs, gaining their shield bonus to reflex saves, which really I kind of imagine the fighter already was doing if he was asked to make a reflex save as like the monk and the rogue or doing spiral backflips through the air. But it's nice to be able to have that mechanically, and it probably means that reflex might not be the fighter's best save. In Pathfinder 2nd edition, the fighter will also have a wide variety of options with ranged weapons. A feat that Paizo notes in this blog is Debilitating Shot, which causes a foe to be slowed if the attack hits, causing it to lose 1 action on its next turn. We all know that haste and slow in Pathfinder 1st edition are really strong, right? That's why the wizard is so good. He's passing out extra actions to the marshals and he's nuking everybody else. Now the fighter can nuke everybody else. In addition, the blog mentions a feat called Double Shot, which allows you to fire a pair of arrows into the 2 nearest foes, as it reads on Paizo's blog. Whether that means the 2 foes closest to you or the 2 foes closest to each other remains to be seen. Either way, that's super good. One more fun feat they note at the very end of the blog, Whirlwind Strike, which allows you to make an attack against all enemies in your reach. Again, it's all kind of up in the air right now, but I am super stoked for this. The fighter in 2nd edition seems a lot more powerful than the 1st edition fighter is. Again, the 1st edition fighter just kind of felt like feats on a stick to me. It just kind of felt like, well, I need to gestalt with something, I'll take 10 more feats, haha! This guy seems to have, to pardon a pun, a little more character about him. This guy seems to be a little more versatile, and I really like that. As much as I might like the power of, say, the 2-handed fighter, if I can play a 2-handed fighter who's also really good with a bow, or really good dual-wielding daggers, or maybe just strapping a couple of tower shields onto his arms and standing in the way of stuff, then so much the better. That makes it a little more interesting to me. and I'm totally down with that. I'm also gonna note here at the end that it feels to me like we're taking a step towards the classical RPG party construction, because with Resonance, it's gonna be a lot harder for that fighter to heal himself. No longer can the fighter just buy a bajillion potions of Cure Light Wounds and have something like Accelerated Drinker and just throw one down when he starts getting beat up, because he's probably gonna want a magic shield, he's probably gonna want a magic sword, and probably a magic everything else too, because he's going to be so versatile. Thus, things like bards, clerics, alchemists, as we move forward in 2nd edition, assuming they come back, things like witches, oracles, really anybody who has access to positive energy is going to be so much more essential in Pathfinder 2nd edition from what I'm reading, because again, you can't just buy a bunch of wands of Cure Light Wounds and hug them when it feels bad until you start feeling good. Though that takes a lot of my opinions on how to build optimized parties and throws them on their head. I won't go so far as to say I'm not okay with it. It does kind of harken back to me the days of old school World of Warcraft, and if I can get a little bit of game nostalgia in my new Pathfinder, I'm okay with that. And hey, if it's a new system, we can always learn to break it, right guys? So what do you guys think about the new fighter? Are you excited to play one? Do you think they will be as powerful as they are in 1st edition? And what kind of weapon loadout will your 2nd edition fighter go into combat with? As always, let me know all about it in the comments below, and we'll keep the conversation going. Be sure to like and subscribe for more videos. We'll see you next time.